Today I am here with Ethan Grant, the host of the Unstuck podcast. I am so excited to have you on today, Ethan.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for our second recording session.
Me too. I had Ethan on, I think it was like a year ago, honestly, and right? And it did so well. So I'm excited to just have more of his input. And we're going to be talking all about self-sabotage today. I know we all do it. We all get stuck in it. But today we're going to understand it and help us stop getting in our own way.
It's so interesting because you said that we all do it, but the funny thing about self-sabotage is most of the times we don't know we're doing it. And that's why it's so nefarious and it can keep us stuck for so long. But I'm hoping today we can talk about how to get out of your own way.
I love that. Yeah. Why do you think that self-sabotage happens?
So the main reason is because it's all driven by your subconscious. This is going to be tough to hear, but as adults, 99% of the decisions you make throughout the day are already made for you by your subconscious, and you're automatically on autopilot. So if you think about it, all of the lessons, all of the beliefs that you absorbed over however long you've been alive, those are how you view the world. That's your lens for viewing everything in the world. And everything gets filtered through that. So you are stuck making the same decisions because you have had the same framework since you were a little kid. And if you never change that, then you never make any different decisions and you just keep the cycle going on and on. So the best way to put it is self-sabotage happens when you want something so desperately and you say out loud, I want this thing, but at the same time, your brain does not believe you are somebody that can have that thing. So it stops you from taking the action to get that thing because your brain cannot hold that nuance. It cannot understand that two things can be true at once. So it prevents you from becoming the thing that it already thinks that you're not. And so then whenever you don't get that thing that you want, it reaffirms the belief that you're not worthy of it. So it's just this vicious cycle.
Yeah, that sounds like a terrible cycle. And I think a lot of it, like what you're saying, it sounds like a lot of it's limiting beliefs and just I'm not capable of having these things even when we want something. And have you heard of the upper limit problem? There's a book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, that talks a lot about this. And he says we have a limit of how much happiness or how much joy we allow into our lives, and you cap that. And that is, I feel what happens so much with self-sabotage. We're I'm only going to allow this much into my life, and at a certain point it's uncomfortable sometimes to even get things that you want.
Yeah, you said that so perfectly. It's the comfort zone paradox, right? As humans, we are hardwired. It's not our fault, but we are hardwired biologically, to stay in a certain zone of comfort because our brain thinks that if we stay in the zone of comfort, we'll be safe, and we're just hardwired to survive to the next day. If you think about our ancestors, right? But what happens when you stay in that comfort zone is your brain's trying to protect you from everything bad that happens or that could happen to you. But whenever you do that, you also miss out on anything good that could happen to you because it doesn't want any change whatsoever. So you're exactly right. That upper limit is the upper bound of your confidence or your comfort zone.
I love how you just said that too, of you also don't allow anything good to happen for you. And I think so often we don't realize everything that we're missing out on. We're just focusing on, oh my God, these negative things could happen, these negative things could happen. And then you aren't thinking about, wait, all of these positive, amazing things that can happen because we are so afraid of fear or failure of success. And a lot of that gets in the way. So do you think that the fear of failure or the fear of success really plays into this as well?
Oh my God, fear is at the center of it because your brain views anything different as dangerous. And if you don't recognize that, you allow that fear to take over you, and then you never make any changes in your life because you just don't feel the need to, and you don't want to be uncomfortable. But yeah, fear of success, fear of failure, those are all things that play into it. And something really interesting that I've been learning lately is whenever you're scared of trying something new, say for instance, you want to be a successful entrepreneur, but every day what you have to do is to wake up and take steps to become an entrepreneur. But on some level, you're scared that if you do those things, then you'll eventually find out that you don't have what it takes. So you get in your own way of taking the action that would require you to get you to that level. And fear has basically caused you to self-sabotage from getting what you want in life in that scenario.
How do you think we recognize that we're standing in our own way? How Do you think it's possible to be like, wait, I am self-sabotaging right now, and just like get aware of it?
It's funny you ask that because it almost always requires someone else pointing it out. And I know it's like tough to hear, but for instance, I had like 2 or 3 TikToks in the past month or so like blow up because I think a lot of people recognize like whenever they hear it and they hear someone ask it this way, it like triggers something in their brain. They feel seen. So I always say like, if you constantly procrastinate or if you consistently put off doing things that would improve your life, it's because you don't think you deserve a better life. So if that resonates with you, like you're probably self-sabotaging. Or if you've been stuck in the same patterns forever and haven't actually made progress towards your goals that you say you want, that's also a classic sign that you're self-sabotaging.
So it's really when you feel stuck somewhere almost and like aren't making the changes for life to get better.
Yeah, it's like if you recognize you're stuck, A, that's amazing. That's like the first step in all of this, right? B is like feeling like it's okay that you've gotten to this stage in life. Like your beliefs and your values as they exist today have like gotten you to this place, but they can't take you any further. So you have to make an adjustment or else you'll just live the same year over and over again for the next 10 years.
Yeah, it's so like crazy to think about too that like I almost had this huge like realization recently too of like, oh my God, like nothing is changing right now. And then feeling like, okay, there's all these things that I want to do, but almost feeling like paralyzed. I'm like, oh my God, this is like scary. What if things go wrong? And I'm like, wait, maybe things are allowed to actually get better. And if I were to actually just make that change, everything could change. Do you think
Yeah.
there's like a time in your life that you felt like you were self-sabotaging?
Oh my God. How much time do you have? Like literally in like the master of self-sabotage, I think maybe one scenario that people might relate to is like, I'm someone who ever since I was little have like always desperately wanted deep connection with people. But because of like how I was raised and like the environment I grew up in, I learned to like play small and I learned not to be 100% honest about who I was. And I masked a lot. And over time, like those two things became at odds, right? Like I wanted deep connection, but because I was like not letting people in and I wasn't letting people see me for who I was preventing the connection from happening. So I would like say out loud, like, oh my God, I wish I had closer friends. Like I wish I was more seen and understood, but I was the one that wasn't letting people get to that level with me. And I didn't realize it until my therapist pointed it out. And I'm like super lucky to be able to afford therapy. I know it's not available for a lot of people, but like that is the number one way to have somebody like put a mirror back on you and say, here's how you're self-sabotaging, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, definitely. I think also a big thing too is if you want to get somewhere and it's not happening, like recognizing that pattern that you're in and then asking yourself, okay, what is that negative pattern that I have? And then how is this benefiting me? And really like understanding like the positive intention behind it. Because a lot of the times like maybe it's like, oh, I'm afraid to put myself out there because I'm afraid of what people are going to say, or I'm afraid of like getting close to someone because what if they hurt me? And so like the positive intention behind that is safety. But once you're able to recognize that and be like, okay, you know what, like I can protect myself in other ways while also getting the result without like losing the potential of everything good that could happen.
Yeah, it's called like secondary gain. Whenever you like get a secondary benefit from not putting yourself out there or not trying to go for things that you want, it allows you to like remain in the exact same spot and not challenge the image you have of yourself. And it's like such a dangerous trap because you're comfortable with who you are, probably like you don't mind the position you're in. Like it's not dangerous, but it feels kind of good to know what's going to happen tomorrow when you wake up. But like that's such a trap because 10 years can pass and you can be like, wow, what just happened? Like I haven't moved at all.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, I think that in itself can be such a motivator too of, do I want my life to be the same as it is right now in a few years? And so when challenges come up or those things come up, instead of like falling back into those patterns, you're able to take a step back and be like, no, I don't want life to stay the same. So maybe this challenge is actually here for me to like overcome where I'm at right now.
Exactly. And I've noticed like the main difference between people that become successful and like create a happy life for themselves versus those that stay stuck is people that wind up creating the successful, like happy life for themselves. They recognize challenges as opportunities, not obstacles. Like they
Definitely.
view a challenge as a way to like improve themselves and to learn something, because that's why we're here at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it's almost like, it sounds so weird, but to get excited about those challenges and be like, oh my God, yay, like new level is about to be unlocked in my life by me overcoming this challenge. And like, obviously, you can acknowledge that sometimes it's annoying to have to deal with a challenge, and no one wants to deal with something bad happening. But realizing that, like, when you get over the hump, there's going to be like something even more beautiful on the other side of it.
Yeah, and the really interesting thing is our brains, this very exact same part of your brain that processes fear also processes excitement. So you can actually trick yourself. And like, I love to trick myself. Whenever you're scared to do something, you literally just tell yourself like, oh, actually, I'm excited to do this. And you can literally tell your brain to process that feeling differently. And because it lives in the same area of your brain, like it believes you. And so that's a
Yes.
trick that I like to implement whenever I'm trying something scary.
Yes, I remember when I was like 15 in therapy, my therapist was like, anxiety and excitement are the same feeling, but it is up to you how you interpret it. And ever
Damn.
since then, I was like, that is crazy. And it put me in my place because I was like, am I anxious right now, or am I just excited that I'm about to go to this event alone and I don't know anyone? Like, it really is the way that you're reframing it. And then the thoughts that you keep telling yourself and the beliefs is what you end up showing up as.
Yeah. And I know this sounds crazy, but like it's also something I learned in therapy, but your thoughts create your emotions. Like a lot of people think that they're, you know, helpless against the emotions that come up, but literally your thoughts inform your emotions, and you don't have to participate in the thoughts that create very negative emotions. Like it's not beneficial. You have to ask yourself, is this serving me or is it hurting me? And a lot of the times it's
Yeah.
just hurting you.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy though to like, you have to take a lot of accountability in that and be like, okay, are these thoughts beneficial to me? And why am I putting myself through this right now? Like, why am I trying to make myself feel bad about myself or putting myself down? So it's very like, it's like a humbling realization almost of like, it's time for me to take accountability in my life.
Yeah. And, you know, I also want to say, like, it's not your fault for like having those negative thoughts about yourself. If you think about it, like, those negative thoughts come from the beliefs that you've absorbed over time about yourself that other people have told you, that are external thoughts, external criticisms, external beliefs that you've absorbed. But because in your head, it sounds like your voice thinking, you think that it's inherently you criticizing yourself. But in reality, it's just like the voices of all those people from back in the day that don't matter anymore. And it's adopted your voice. So you think it's your thought, but it really isn't. And you can change that.
Yeah, I think something else I've been so into recently is just changing my self-concept and being like, okay, I can completely change the way that I view myself. And when you change the way that you view yourself, you start showing up differently. And when you start showing up differently, like you attract new outcomes. And so it's just so crazy and exciting that you're completely like, you are allowed to change the way you're thinking. You are allowed to change the way you are showing up, if you just really want to.
Yeah. And you know what it all starts with? It all comes back to being able to reassure yourself. Like the answer at the end of the day for 99% of things that you can face is like, how can I reassure myself in this moment? If you have
Yeah.
that, like nothing can stop you, honestly.
Definitely. And like being your own best friend in that sense of like, I would never, I think that's a big part of self-sabotage too. It's like, you would never go to a friend and put them down and be so mean to them. And then here you are literally putting yourself down, being like, you want to go for an opportunity. Like you would never go up to a friend and be like, why would you try going for that? Like, you think you're qualified for that? That's ridiculous. Like you would never say that to a friend, and you're like saying that to yourself. And so like,
Yeah.
it's just insane.
Well, like 90% of us are conditioned to motivate ourselves with like fear and anxiety because it's just like how we were raised, right? Like you have to finish this test, you have to finish this quiz, you have to like perform or else you're going to get in trouble. Like we learn how to motivate ourselves with fear and anxiety, but what would your life look like if you were able to motivate yourself with like compassion and reassurance and self-love? I bet it would look a lot
Yeah.
different.
What do you think like the turning point for you was to like really break free from those like negative thought patterns?
Honestly, I guess I'll like get a bit personal here, but um, I started dating my boyfriend like a year and a half ago, and like 5 months into our relationship, I like wasn't given an ultimatum, but I was like sat down and he was like, it's impossible to get close to you. Like I try to pull you in and pull you in and pull you in, but you have so many walls up. Like you have to work on this, or else like we're not gonna work. And I was like, holy shit, I have no idea. And until someone like pointed that out to me, I couldn't see myself in the mirror. And so that was a turning point where I started like trying to analyze like my past, trying to analyze the beliefs that I've absorbed about myself, all my defense mechanisms, and just like that first step of being able to, without guilt, without shame, just look at yourself and your past and accept where you are today as like your reality, and just accept it fully and don't judge it. Just be like, hey, this is what happened to me in the past. That's why I act this way. That's why I do this thing. I'm not going to let it control my life from this point on.
It's amazing. Yeah, and I think it's so beautiful when someone is able to come and be honest with you and be like, "Hey, this is something that I'm noticing within you." And it's also it takes so much accountability for you to accept that, because I think a lot of us a lot of the times are like, "I don't want to accept this about me. Like I don't want to it like you're able to say those negative things about yourself. I don't want to call them negative, but those like realizations, but when someone else is able to sit you down and have that conversation, first off, it takes a lot of power for them, but also for you to be able to like take the responsibility and be like, wait, this is something that maybe I actually need to work on.
And it hurts, right? Like it sucks to be told you're not doing good at something. But like the key is to, in that moment, instead of like playing into the shame and like the feelings of inadequacy and like you're not worth it, you're not worthy of love, like you just sit and be like, what if I could just like hear this feedback objectively and like not put a story to it, not let it challenge my sense of self, and just view it as like a question I got wrong in a test. Like how would I go back and answer it from the first step, right? Like it's not a huge deal, but like whenever you take feedback personally, you don't grow because you've tied a story to it.
I love that so much. I feel like that just really hit.
Yeah.
'Cause it's so easy to internalize it and be like, something's wrong with me because someone said this about me. And it really goes back to what you were saying before, to have let go of making it your fault and being like, this is like, I can't believe you did this, and I can't believe you're feeling this way, and I can't believe, like, it's just like putting that shame on ourselves when there is no shame. It's just, yeah, beliefs that we took on from other people, like past experiences, and then you are able to like accept it without judgment and figure it out and like grow from it.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. It's hard. It's just one of those things you have to learn how to do as a human if you want to like have better relationships. But yeah, if no one tells you that, how would you ever know?
Truly. What do you think like the first step was for you, or just in general, like of breaking this cycle of self-sabotage?
Yeah. So I actually have an ebook coming out that goes through all the steps of how to break self-sabotage, but I think it's important to like start from square one. So if you think about where you are today, you have values and you have beliefs, right? Your values are like, I value morality, integrity, trustworthiness, but your beliefs are like, I believe that I am worthy of love, or I believe that I'm not worthy of love, or I believe that relationships are dangerous, right? Like these are core beliefs that you have. If you think of your values as like the direction you're going, your beliefs are like the car that's taking you there. And that's like the decisions you're making on a daily basis. It's like how you're taking the next, the next day, the next week. It's what you're doing day to day. So like if one of those things is off, you're either heading in the wrong direction or you've broken down and you're not moving. So something that happens is like a self-sabotaging behavior falls into like one of these buckets. Either it's caused by a negative value you have or like a negative core belief that you have. So the first step is identifying like what your self-sabotaging behavior is, and then like bucketing it into those two. So an example of like a belief-based self-sabotage is I'm not worthy of love. And so you wind up pushing people away. You wind up not having deep relationships. So you have to cure and go back and heal that wound before you can actually start making that progress. Whereas like a values-based self-sabotaging behavior is like, okay, I value stability and safety over everything else. So I play small. Like I don't put myself out there because I'd rather be stable and safe than having to grow and be challenged daily. So I think like depending on if you have a value-based self-sabotage or a belief-based self-sabotage, that informs what you do next.
Wait, I've never thought of it like that. I feel like my mind just got like blown. I've always just thought of it about like beliefs, but never the values and how a lot of the times our values could be getting in our way.
Yeah. And it's like so tricky because what happens is like growing up, both values and beliefs get pushed on you from like the second you can start understanding words. Other people's values get put on you. And whenever you live your life by other people's values, it's like you're trying to drive to Seattle, but your GPS is taking you to Ohio. Like it makes no sense. You're going in the complete wrong direction. And so you have to literally take the time to say, oh, wow, here's the values I've been living by. They're not serving me. What are my actual values? And how can I replace my schedule to be more aligned with those values instead?
Yeah, it's amazing. How do you think? So I think like, okay, doing this is amazing and you're able to overcome it, but do you like, what is your advice if someone is like, they've overcome this belief, this value, and overcoming self-sabotage, but then like they're falling back in to old patterns? How do you think you stay committed to your goals when those old patterns start creeping in?
Honestly, like having someone to help keep you accountable is nice. I know it's like not a luxury everybody has, like of like having a close family friend or like a partner to tell you. Honestly, I would say like checking in with yourself, you know, once or twice a week when you wake up and doing it from a place of compassion and just being like, okay, so how did I do over the past few days? Like, am I making progress? Am I stopping the self-sabotaging behavior, or have I like fallen back into it? Just like maintaining awareness is the number one key, because that's what's at the center of all of this, is just being aware of it and like being able to recognize it. Yeah,
because so many of us just don't even realize it. And I think also like perfectionism and procrastination come up a lot with self-sabotage, and we don't realize like, what advice do you have for overcoming perfectionism and procrastination?
So perfectionism's a really interesting one. It usually comes from like in your upbringing, having your value and your worth attached to your achievements, and like having love be conditional on like if you're achieving or if you're doing well in school or whatever it may be. And I think for that one, it's tough because a lot of times perfectionism allows you to stay stuck and not make progress, because you say, if something's not perfect, I don't have to like make progress. I don't have to go to the next step. I can just stay where I am, because I'm using that defense of like, oh, it's not perfect yet. I don't have to like take the next step. I don't have to move on. And the way to heal perfectionism is just to really like sit in the emotion that comes up whenever you're noticing you're doing like perfectionist things. And the emotion that comes up, it might feel like sadness or like grief that you didn't get unconditional love as a kid. And the way you fix it is to like give yourself that in the moment, and to just go back and like see if you can project and think of yourself like an image of yourself from that age whenever you didn't get that unconditional love, and just like have a conversation with yourself. And that's like the best thing you could ever do for yourself, and honestly like how I changed my life.
I love that. Yeah, another big thing I think therapy taught me was like asking yourself, how old is this feeling that I'm feeling right now? And so realizing like, okay, I'm feeling this way, but maybe that's like 16-year-old Katie who's actually feeling this way, and coming from that place of like, how can I be there for that 16-year-old version of me, has been so huge in like overcoming those like feelings that are coming up.
Yeah. One way that it got put to me that like stopped me dead in my tracks, and like I have been thinking about it every day since, was like, whenever you think about the age that emotion is, say like it was 16-year-old Katie, like that version of you has been stuck back there for the past 11 years. I think you're 26, 27, past 10 or 11 years.
I'm 25. Yeah.
Oh, 26, sorry. Past 9 years. And she's been waiting for you to like come and help her for the past 9 years. Whenever I heard that, I got so sad. I was like, oh my God, I've abandoned parts of myself.
Yeah. It's just like so crazy too. I think sometimes like it is so sad because I'm thinking about even like an 8-year-old version of me. I'm like, that's so sad she was feeling that way. How can I bring in who I am right now and like be there for her and like understand how she's feeling and give her that love so that we can move on from that.
Exactly. And the secondary benefit of that is like that version of yourself from that age is like so cool, is so funny, has so much infinite wisdom and creativity that's been like locked away back there. And whenever you can bring that version of yourself into today, like so many opportunities open up for you because you unlock all of that stuff that's been like honestly in like in a cage for the past like 9-10 years.
Yeah. Wow. It's like that whole version of you that's waiting for you to come and save them. That's so sad, but also so exciting at the same time.
It is. And we have like multiple versions of ourselves just waiting for you to like heal them and bring them forward.
Definitely. And then I want to end this off with asking you, like, what is one powerful piece of advice that you'd give to someone who feels stuck in self-sabotage right now?
One powerful piece of advice. Honestly, like what I wish somebody would have told me is it's going to like hurt the first time someone points it out to you, points out like how you're getting in your own way, and you won't want to believe it and you'll want to blame it on everything else. But at the end of the day, like learning how to take criticism or like not even a negative sentiment, but like take feedback or like have a tough conversation with somebody, learning how to do that is like one of the most fundamental life skills you can ever learn. And whenever you start learning how to like not take feedback or tough conversations personally and just view it as a chance to grow, like so many things unlock for you, like so many different paths forward, so many deeper relationships, deeper connections, so much success. Like that's all on the other side of you learning how to hear how you can be better and how you can improve. Figuring out a way to like not take it personally, like work with your friends, work with your families, work with your therapist, just like figure out a way not to take it personally so that you can view it as a chance to grow, because like so much is waiting for you just on the other side of that belief.
I love that. I love that so much. And life is all about just growing and becoming the best version of ourselves. And thank you so much for coming on today. I feel like we had so much good insight about self-sabotage, and I'm excited for everyone to really stop self-sabotaging because life is way too short to be living in that place.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me on. I honestly am so fascinated by this topic, and I love like helping people figure out where they're self-sabotaging and like how to break that cycle too. So if you have anyone you know that wants to like get further in life but doesn't know where to start, like send them my way and I can try to help point out what they're doing.
Yes, and then can you tell everyone where they can find you too?
Yeah, I'm on TikTok at Unstuck Podcast and on Instagram at Ethan Grant Mark, and I will share my handles with Katie so she can put them in the show notes too.
Yes, they'll be in the show notes. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will chat in the next episode.
Bye.